Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for sending me these questions and asking me to come and speak with you. I put together a few pictures and I thought I'd share those with you first, and then I'll answer your questions as we go along. So let me begin the screen share. So my name is Jane Dunnewold, and I'm an artist, and I live in the United States, and I live in the state of Texas. And this is a picture of me when I was the same age that you are. And I liked to do things when I was a kid that were related to art. I was really interested in drawing and painting, and I liked cutting things out of cardboard and making shapes. And I played with Barbie dolls, and we made furniture, and we made all kinds of things for our Barbie doll house, which was a big quilt spread out on the floor. And so I think there are lots of ways that when we're the age that you are, we can start to develop our interest in art. And it's a really good thing to have an interest in art from an early age. I do a lot of teaching and I share what I do with all of my students. And that includes making eraser stamps. Right here, you can see I have a little eraser. I'm not sure what you call it in the UK, but you use it to take away pencil marks that you want to get rid of. So I teach lots of different kinds of things that are related to silkscreen printing and painting and using dyes to color fabric. And I really like what I do. What made me like art is one of the questions you asked me. I like the opportunity to be creative. I like to try lots of different things. And I think if you're interested in art, you should try lots of different things too, because you'll probably figure out what you like best, and then you can concentrate on that. Or you might be the kind of artist or person who just likes to try all kinds of different things. There are particular topics or objects that show up in my work quite a bit, and birds are one of them. I use round shapes like this moon sun shape that you see here. I use those shapes a lot in my work, and I also use birds because I think birds symbolize nature, and they also symbolize freedom in a way because they can fly around. They're free to go wherever they want to go, aren't they? Because they can fly. I'm also drawn to the owl, and we think of the owl as representing somebody that's really wise and has a lot of experience and can give good advice. So I use owls in my work too. And there you see the big sun again. And all of these pieces are on fabric. Let's see, one of the questions was, what are your favorite materials to use to create your art? I like to use fabric. That's how I got started. When I was a little girl, I learned how to sew clothing, and I learned how to do quilting, and I learned how to do embroidery and stitching. And so all of those materials are part of what I use when I make the work that I make. Here you see another bird in this picture, and this picture is a combination of fabric, and it's also a combination of a kind of a vinyl, the piece that you see in the middle there. I often use words in my work, and in this piece, you can see words like fair and open on the left-hand side. You can see open-minded. And those are all qualities that I think it's important for artists to have so that you can stay open-minded to your ideas. And so you can also stay open-minded to the kinds of tools that you like to use. These fish are all hand painted, and they're hand painted on fabric. And there you're beginning to see a theme, because here I have that sun again. In this particular series, which included the bird pieces and also this piece with the fish, I used that shape, that round shape that symbolizes sometimes the sun and sometimes the moon. But when you think about the kinds of drawings that you do, I bet there are certain kinds of things that you like to draw over and over again. And those things that you like to draw over and over again can become your theme. This is a piece I did a whole lot later, and this is made from all kinds of embroideries that I found in a thrift shop. I think maybe you might call it an op shop, but it's a place where they resell things that other people gave away. And so I bought all of these embroideries, including the parrot, and I cut them out, and then I used an adhesive to stick them all onto the fabric background, which I had already hand painted. This is called Grandma's Garden. This is a piece in that same series made from other people's beautiful embroideries so that they don't go to waste. You might know the term repurposing, and repurposing means to use things in a new way. And I think artists are really good at using particular kinds of things in new ways. And so this has some needlepoint, which is the embroidery that you see that has the little kitty cat on it, and the flowers, and also the little piece with the sailboat. Those were all put together to make a brand new composition. One of the questions was what inspired you to become a textile artist? And I became a textile artist because of my background in studying all of these different ways of using fabric and stitching and thread. Later on, when I was a little bit older, I got interested in using plants and leaves and flowers to make pieces. And so this is a piece that I did 2 years ago, and it's pretty large. And one of the questions was, how long does it take for you to make a piece of artwork? And this piece of artwork took me 8 months to make. And that's because it took over 40 hours just to do the stitching on it, which you can't really see because I don't have a close-up. But there is hand stitching all over the piece in order to hold the layers together. So it's sort of like a quilt, except that you wouldn't put it on the bed. And all of the big leaf shapes that you see were made by taking real leaves and dipping them in a solution of iron water, and then putting them on the fabric, and then using a heat press. A heat press is two big flat panels, and they close together. And when they close together, they press the fabric, and then the panels are hot. So it heats up the leaves and it transfers all of the pattern and the color onto the fabric. That's how all of the leaves were made. You can see lots of butterflies on this piece. And if you look closely, you can see a little red bird down at the bottom. And if you look up toward the yellow flower in the middle, you can see two little black and white birds. So you see, I've continued the idea of using birds in my work, and the butterflies, because the butterflies are also symbols of freedom. And if you look carefully, you can see the gold circle in the middle of the piece. So there's my sun. It turned up once again. This is the studio where I work. It used to be a garage that held the car, but we fixed it all up by putting tile on the floor and by painting the walls white and by putting up the pinup board that you can see there on the wall. That's where I put up pieces that I'm working on so I can look at them to see whether I'm making the right decisions or not. And instead of a wooden garage door, I have a glass garage door so that the light can come in. So it's a very, very lovely, warm, nice space, and it's completely dedicated to all of the things that I make. Sometimes I make collages. I wonder if you've ever made a collage. A collage is, again, using lots of different shapes and pictures that come from different places and putting them all together so that you're making a new piece of art. I think it's important when you're an artist to create some tools. And one of the tools that I use is this color wheel. It's not the kind of color wheel that you've probably seen in a book or that you might have drawn in an art class, but it's a color wheel made out of different fabric shapes. And a friend made this and gave it to me, and it hangs on my wall to remind me that there are relationships between the colors, and that if I know what those relationships are, I can use the colors together to make a piece that's very pleasing. This is a painting that my granddaughter made. She's 7, and she made this painting, and look at the painting and then look at the color wheel again. The white is on the outside here with the color in between in the middle, but on this piece, the color is all around and the white shape is in the middle. And I have the color wheel and this painting hanging side by side in my studio because I think they fit so well together. And you know what else it shows? It shows that artists all have different ways of approaching things. So if I gave each of you a box of all the colors that you see in this painting, and I asked you to make a painting of your own, everybody's painting would be a little bit different, or maybe a lot different. And I think that's a really important thing to recognize about making art. There are lots of ways to make art, and they're all right. There isn't a single wrong way to do art. When I work in the studio, my dog is there with me. Her name is Pema, and she has a cushion on the floor. And whenever I'm in the studio working, she likes to be in there, right by my side, sleeping and paying attention sometimes to what I actually make. It's nice to have an animal. I have 2 cats, and they come into the studio too, but they knock things over and create chaos. So they're not as welcome as Pema. This is Pema. One of the questions was whether I have a favorite artist. And I have lots of artists whose work I really love. I bet that when you look at art, you probably like lots of different styles too. This is a painting by a painter in the United States, and her name was Georgia O'Keeffe. And she focused on painting close-up pictures that are very, very big of all kinds of landscapes and flowers. This is a piece that I really like. It's kind of a collage in a way, although it's actually built on a box. So we have a word for that. It's called an assemblage. And this is a piece where the shape, the background is hand-painted canvas, and it's mounted on a board. And then the artist, whose name is Billy Keene carves the figures out of wood and polishes them. So you see the turtle, and you see the shape that looks kind of like a human being, and you see the bird at the top of the piece. And maybe I like Billy Keene's work partly because of how he puts all the various components together, but I also like his work because he uses birds a lot, and he thinks about birds the same way I think about birds. They're a symbol of freedom. This is a quilt. When a quilt doesn't go on the bed, we call it an art quilt. And you might have already heard that term in your class with your teacher. But this is an art quilt that is called memory jars because the jars have all kinds of little shapes that are sewn onto them. And a memory jar is a container that you put things in that you collect. So if you've ever walked around outside and picked up sticks or little stones that you thought were pretty, or if your mother maybe has a button collection and you've played with the button collection, those are all examples of things that you could put in your memory jar to keep them all together. This artist's name is Terry Mangat, and she does lots and lots of pieces like this that have all kinds of charms and little stickers and beads and shapes sewn to them. I really just love the way she organizes and uses, again, remember that term, repurposing. She's using things that had another use and changing the use, and now she's using them as decorations. So I hope you enjoyed seeing those pictures and hearing about those pieces. Let me look at a couple more of your questions. What made you want to be an artist? I wanted to be an artist because I thought it was a great way to express myself. When you paint a picture or you make a collage, you're expressing yourself in a way that no one else will ever express themselves. So being an artist is a really great way to be an individual and be different from other people. It's hard to make money being an artist, so I don't really make money from being an artist. Sometimes I sell my work, and one of the questions was, do people like your artwork? They do like my artwork, and I sell artwork a lot. But most of the money that I actually make from teaching other people how to make art and how to be different in the work that they do. So my life is a combination. I write books, and I also make art, and I also teach people. And so those 3 things together, I've been doing that for a long time. Can you imagine 30 years? That must seem like a really long time when you're 10 years old. But I've been doing that for that long, 30 years. I really love it and I never get tired of it. And I've made lots of pieces that I really love. But the ones I showed you, because one of the questions is, what do you think is the best artwork that you've made? And I think the best artwork that I made is the piece I'm working on when I'm working on it. And I think that's another thing about being an artist. You can really love every single piece you make. Sometimes your work wins prizes or awards, and some of my pieces have won prizes and awards. So obviously, other people think those pieces are really good. But I think the most important thing about being an artist is for you to love what you make best. You can look around the room and like all of the artwork that the other students are making. And it's good to be supportive of each other and help each other and give each other advice. But the most important thing is for you to be true to yourself and to love making the art that you make best. Maybe it isn't perfect because the artwork we make isn't perfect all the time. It doesn't have to be perfect because you know the important thing? We're learning all the time. And that's one of the things I like the most about being an artist is that every single time you make something new, you're learning something really important. So don't just focus on whether the artwork that you're making, the painting that you're making is a really good painting and whether or not it's perfect. Don't be sad. If it's not perfect, it's still good enough. And that's an important thing. Let's see. Is it hard to make the art you do? Yeah, sometimes it is. But another important lesson by being an artist is that you just keep sticking with it. You keep on going and you don't give up. Because if this piece doesn't go that well and you don't know what to do with it, you can always set it aside and get a new piece of paper or a new piece of cloth and start again. I think I've answered most of the questions that you've written here, and I know there is a time limit on the class period that you're in. So I just want to thank you again for inviting me to talk to you today. And I hope that you enjoy making art as much as I enjoy making art. And I'm so glad that your teacher invited me to be with you. And if you would like to write an email to me, she can give you my email address because I would love to hear from you if you would like to write to me. Okay, have a really great day and take care and be safe.